Welcome back to Higher Ground, a special 5-part series on neurodivergent relationships with Dr. Kathy Marshak. I'm your host, Dr. Kathy. In this 5th and final episode, we're bringing everything together. We've talked about the power of gossip, the pain of proving the truth, the retaliation that comes when you stand for what's right and true, and the unimaginable loss of parental alienation when they use your children to get you. So now what's next? How do you move forward when so much has been taken from you? How do you write your own story and leave a legacy even when the people you once loved most may never return? That's what we're talking about today. The power of writing your own story. No one else gets to define you. No one gets to define your life. You do. The temptation to let pain become your identity, don't let it. Why the best revenge isn't proving people wrong, it's living well. A few months ago, a FedEx driver knocked on my door with a package. Behind me, through the window, my books were neatly arranged, my backdrop for video recordings, as you can see now. As I greeted him, he hesitated for a moment and asked, "Are you an author?" I smiled and said, "Yes, but I'm not the kind of author you typically find on the Oregon coast in a resort town. I don't write romance novels. My books are about neurodivergent relationships, about autists in relationship with neurotypicals." He nodded and said, "Oh," and left. And that was that, or so I thought. A week later, he returned with another delivery. It was a cold day, the roads were icy, and I stepped outside to greet him again. I asked him, I hope you're doing okay. You're getting around okay in this ice." And he looked at me with a shy smile and said, "Yes, I'm doing very well. I've been listening to 8 hours of your podcasts while I'm driving." You could have knocked me over with a feather. I was so surprised. I asked him, you found my podcast and you're listening? And he nodded and said, "Yes, I have been. It's been keeping me busy during this cold weather." And I asked him, "Well, do you have a family member who's autistic?" And he said, "Yes, me. I've been listening to your podcast to help me do better with my wife." Tears welled up in my eyes. Here was this young man, about the same age as my daughters, learning from me, learning what I had so desperately wished I could teach my own children. In that moment, I realized something profound. My story was still reaching people, even if it wasn't reaching the ones I had lost. It was reaching people who needed to hear it, like my FedEx driver. So, the legacy you leave is beyond your losses. The people who need your wisdom aren't always the ones you expect. Letting go of the need to win or prove yourself, instead, just be who you are. And how your resilience, your work, and your story can change lives, even if your children never return. You're sending ripples out into the world. My daughters may never listen to me again. They may never read my books, hear my words, or see my side of the story. But does that mean my story is over? No. No, because somewhere out there, there is someone like that young FedEx driver who's ready to listen, who wants to listen. And maybe, just maybe, one day the truth will reach my daughters through someone else. Maybe it will be a friend, a partner, or even a stranger who hands them one of my books or repeats something I once said. I may not get to see that moment, but I can trust that the truth has a way of finding the people who need it. Okay, on writing your own ending, you don't have to let the past define you. Your pain doesn't have to be your final chapter. And choosing to build a life that is full, meaningful, and driven by your own truth is rewarding. Radiant empathy is the fuel for moving forward, by the way. Radiant empathy is a direct result of my suffering, but it is also a testament to my refusal to give up on myself. Instead of being consumed by my pain, I transformed it into something that could light the way for others. This journey led me to write my books, to develop the map of empathy territory, and to create the 7-step interface protocol. At the center of it all is radiant empathy, my true north. It's the understanding that we're not bound by the limitations of our past or the cruelty of others. We have the power to rise above, to connect, and to create a life filled with purpose. One of the most profound moments in this journey came from an ASD reader who found my work inspirational and helped refine the concept of empathy triad engagement. It was a reminder that healing and growth are not solitary endeavors. We learn from each other. We evolve and we expand the reach of our understanding. Like my rocket ship dream, radiant empathy is the fuel that allows us to break free from the gravity of our past and launch forward toward new possibilities. So, I can tell you more about those stories in another podcast, but many of you already have heard them. One final thought. One of my students was struggling with her life. Her choice to leave her ASD husband had been extremely painful. She asked me how she could cope with the regret and suffering and get on with her life. I looked at her, smiled, and said, "You don't have to be like me. You don't have to write books. You don't have to start a podcast." I said, "When you're not sure what to do, just go big. Your own big. Go big." She got it. She laughed and said, "I can do that. I can do that." So I hope you join me for the podcast after party. If the series has resonated with you, check the schedule on my websites and sign up for a live discussion. Let's keep this conversation going and support one another as we step into the next chapter of our lives. Go big, rise up, attain radiant empathy. That's the way to leave your legacy. So, this is the last episode in Higher Ground. I'm Dr. Kathy Marshak. Thank you for joining me on this journey. You're not alone. Your story isn't over. Time to go big, because back is not an option. You have important work to do.